On the 18th anniversary of his greatest battle against Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer made a choice. He didn't come to Wimbledon to simply reminisce. Instead, he walked to the royal box, sat down, and watched a 2-1 year-old from the Philippines play the biggest match of her young career. The question isn't who watched. The question is why. Because Roger Federer doesn't just show up to tennis tournaments anymore. He's earned the right to be selective. When he's in the stands, it means something. It means he saw something that made him say yes to the long flight, yes to the attention, yes to sitting courtside while the entire tennis world whispered about his presence. So, here's the mystery we're solving today. What did the GOAT see in Eala that made him want to witness her next battle? 2 days before Federer arrived, Eala had done something no one from her country had ever done before. She beat the defending Wimbledon champion Iga Swiatek, world number 3. 6-time Grand Slam winner on center court. In 1 hour and 24 minutes, Eala took her down 7-6, 6-2. And not in some fluky way, in a way that made people stop and stare. But here's where it gets interesting. Beating Swiatek once is an upset. Beating her twice with people actually paying attention is a statement. And when Federer heard that Eala was coming back out on that same court 48 hours later to face another elite player, he decided to be there, not to see if she could win again, to see something deeper. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what he saw that day. But before we get there, you need to understand why Federer's presence changed everything about how we should think about Eala. Roger Federer doesn't do a lot of public appearances at tennis tournaments these days. He's earned the right to pick and choose. So when word spread that he was coming to Wimbledon in July 2026, specifically to sit in the royal box on Monday, July 6th, it meant something because Federer only watches when history is about to be made. Think about what Wimbledon means to him. 8 titles. 14 finals. It's not just a tournament on his resume. It's the place where he became himself. It's the stage where he learned how to win. The grass courts of the All England Club are essentially the shrine of Roger Federer's career. And the Royal Box is where he gets to sit and witness the future of the sport. 2 days before his arrival, Eala had already made history. She beat Iga Swiatek on center court, not in some quiet early round. In the 3rd round of Wimbledon on the biggest stage against the defending champion and world number 3, Eala, a 2-1 year-old from the Philippines, took down a 6-time Grand Slam winner in straight sets. In doing so, she became the first Filipino player ever to reach the 2nd week of a Grand Slam. Think about that for a second. More than a century of Grand Slam tennis. Millions of players from dozens of countries. And Eala was the first one from her entire nation to do this. But here's what made Federer pay attention. It wasn't just that she won, it was how she won. In that opening set against Swiatek, I was serving for the set at 5-3. She had a set point right there. But Swiatek didn't quit. She came back, got to 5-5. Then they went to a tie break. Not a regular tie break. A 20-point tie break. 84 minutes of tennis in that single set. Back and forth, point for point. Swiatek was the favorite. Swiatek had beaten everyone else in the field. But in that tiebreak, Eala saved multiple set points. She kept finding the line. She kept hitting winners when the match was on the line. And then she won it 11-9. Most 2-1-year-olds don't recover from something like that. Most players don't come back after an 84-minute first set and dominate the second set 6-2. They're drained mentally, physically, emotionally. But Eala came out in the second set and played like she just had a 200-minute break. She was sharper. She was more aggressive. She closed it out 6-2. That's the kind of thing that makes legends sit up and take notice. Federer had played over 200 Grand Slam matches in his career. He knows what separates players who have won great tournament from players who are built to sustain excellence. And when he heard that Eala was coming back on Monday to face Jasmine Paolini, a former world number 4 with a decade of Grand Slam experience, he made his choice. He was going to be there. The Royal Box was going to have the greatest player of all time sitting in it. and Eala was going to play her biggest match yet knowing that Federer's eyes were on her. So now I want you to understand something specific because what happened in that Peony match wasn't just about winning or losing, it was about what Federer had come to see. And by the time you see what actually transpired on that court, you'll realize that this moment was about something way bigger than just tennis. If you're curious about what that is, stick around because this is where the Real story begins. Before Eala even stepped onto center court to face Paolini, there was a story the broadcast didn't tell you. Yes, she beat. But that wasn't luck. Look at the numbers. At 21 years old, she's 7-4 against top 10 opponents. 7 wins against the best players in the world. Most players her age are still figuring out how to survive on the tour. Eala is dismantling the people ranked above her. She's 2-1 against Swiatek specifically. Think about that. She doesn't just have one win over the defending champion. She leads the head-to-head. When these two players meet, Eala wins more often than she loses. So when people called her upset over Swiatek a shock, they were missing something crucial. It wasn't a shock to anyone who was paying attention to the actual data. But there's more. 4 weeks before Wimbledon on grass, Eala won the Birmingham Open. An entire WTA title on the exact surface where she was about to play the biggest tournament of her career. Not a small event. A real WTA tournament. She beat everyone in the draw. So when she showed up to Wimbledon, she wasn't arriving cold. She wasn't hoping grass would suit her. She had already proven on grass that she could win multiple times. Then go back further. Earlier in the summer at the Berlin Open, she beat Elena Rybakina. Elena Rybakina, the woman who won Wimbledon in 2022. One of the most devastating strikers in tennis. A player who hits the ball harder and cleaner than almost anyone on the tour. Eala took her down 7-5, 6-4 on grass. So now we're seeing a pattern, right? This isn't one good week. This isn't one lucky tournament. This is evidence. But here's where it gets strange. Because when Federer looked at all of this, he wasn't just seeing results. He was seeing something else. Something about the way Eala was winning that changed the entire meaning of those numbers. Most people saw Eala as overachieving. That was the narrative. The narrative was, wow, she's so talented that she's beating players ranked above her. Impressive, but surprising, like she was punching above her weight class. But that's not what the data actually showed. The data showed something different. It showed that EA belonged in that conversation all along, that everyone else had just been slow to realize it. Think about how she won those matches against. She didn't play scared. She didn't try to outlast the defending champion. She competed at the same level. She hit winners. She made aggressive choices. She took risks. And when it mattered most in that 84-minute first set, she didn't flinch. She saved set points. She won the tie break. Then she came out and dominated the second set. That's not overachievement. That's mastery disguised as an upset. Against Rybakina, she didn't try to out-hit one of the cleanest strikers in tennis. She adjusted. She used her court sense. She varied the pace. She made Rybakina uncomfortable and she won comfortably. 7-5, 6-4 isn't a scrappy victory. It's a convincing one. So when Federer sat down to watch Eala play Paolini on Monday, he wasn't watching to see if she could get lucky again. He was watching to see if she could do something harder. He was watching to see if she could repeat that performance against someone with even more experience, against someone who had been in these situations hundreds of times before. Because there's a difference between beating someone once and beating someone twice. There's a difference between winning one tournament on grass and winning another. There's a difference between having one incredible week and showing that you've actually figured something out about how to compete at the highest level. Eala had already proven once that she belonged, but Federer was about to find out if she could prove it twice on the same court against fresh competition with the entire tennis world watching. Here's the thing about legendary players. They don't just win. They win repeatedly. They win in different situations. They win when people are expecting them to lose. They win when the pressure is highest. They win and then they win again. Iga had shown she could do this twice now against Switch and then on grass at Birmingham. But could she do it a third time? Could she do it against Paolini, a former world number 4, a Wimbledon finalist, someone who had learned how to win on this stage? That's what Federer was about to see. That's why he came. But here's where it gets complicated. Because what happened next would test everything we thought we knew about Eala. It would push her to her limit, and it would reveal something that changed how we should think about her future forever. Most people looked at the Switch match and saw an upset, a breakthrough, a moment. Federer looked at it and saw something else entirely. He saw the tie break. 20 points of back-and-forth tennis where Eala saved set points without panic. But more importantly, he saw what came after. After an 84-minute first set that would absolutely drain a 2-to-1-year-old physically and mentally, Iga came out in the second set and dominated 6-2. Not a squeaky victory, not a grateful hold-on-and-pray performance. Domination. That's the part most people missed. Here's what most rising players do in that situation. They win the first set, they come out in the second set exhausted, and they try to close it out before they fall apart. They play tight, defensive, scared of losing. They're thinking about the finish line, not about the tennis, and usually they give away games. They get broken. They let their opponent back in. They win, but it's messy. Iga did the opposite. She came out in the second set more aggressive than she was in the first. She broke immediately. She was fresher in the second set than she was in the first. How is that possible after 84 minutes of tennis? How does a 21-year-old find more energy, more focus, more aggression after the most exhausting match of her young career? That's not talent. That's not luck. That's something else. Federer recognized it because he's seen it before. He's been it before. He's played against it. He knows what it looks like when a player doesn't just have skill, but has something deeper. Something in their mental makeup that separates those who briefly rise from those who sustain dominance. The revelation is this. Eala doesn't just play like a 1-year-old who's overachieving. She plays like someone 10 years into her career. Like someone who's already figured out how to manage pressure, how to recover mentally, how to stay aggressive when exhaustion is trying to pull her down. Think about Novak Djokovic in his early 20s. People didn't just see a talented player. They saw someone with a specific kind of composure, a mental toughness that was rare. He could save break points without falling apart. He could lose a set and come back stronger. He could handle pressure like a veteran when he was barely old enough to rent a car. Rafael had it, too. Young Serena Williams had it. The players who ended up becoming the greats didn't just have better forehands or serves. They had something in their nervous system that allowed them to respond to pressure by playing better, not worse. And now has it. This is what separates a player who wins one big tournament from a player who wins many. This is the difference between a breakthrough and a launching pad. This is the quality that Federer, after playing 200-plus Grand Slam matches, knows how to spot immediately. But here's the thing about composure. You can't fake it in a match. You can't manufacture it in practice. It either exists in you or it doesn't. And the only way to really test if it's real is to put someone under the most intense pressure possible and see how they respond. Swiatek tested it once. Eala passed, but that was one test. Federer knew that Paolini was going to be a different kind of test entirely. Because Paolini isn't just experienced, Paolini has been a Wimbledon finalist. She's been inside a Grand Slam final. She's lost on the biggest stage. She knows how to grind. She knows how to compete for hours. She knows how to make adjustments when things aren't working. So when Federer took his seat in the royal box on Monday, he wasn't coming to see if Eala could get lucky twice. He was coming to see if that composure, that mental quality he'd spotted against Swiatek was actually real, was actually built to last. Or was it a one-time thing that couldn't sustain against someone with Paolini's experience? Because if Eala could show that same poise against Paolini, if she could face pressure and respond the same way she did against Swiatek, then everyone would have to accept something difficult. This wasn't a rising talent anymore. This was someone built for the top level, someone with the intangibles that matter most. And that's exactly the moment Federer was waiting for. Because what happened next would answer the question that had brought him to Wimbledon in the first place. And it would do something even more important. It would show the entire tennis world what Eala was really made of. So here's what happened on the court that Monday in front of Federer and a packed center court. Paolini came out aggressive. She'd been struggling most of the season. She was ranked outside the top 10 coming into Wimbledon, but she was a former world number 4, a Wimbledon finalist. She knew how to compete on grass. She knew how to handle pressure, so she came out and played like someone who had everything to prove. She won the first set 6-4. Now, most rising players would have one of two reactions. They either crumble, they start thinking about how they just lost to someone with way more experience, and that negative spiral takes them down. Or they get desperate. They push too hard. They try to hit winners instead of playing points. They press. Did neither. She adjusted. In the second set, she found a way to break Paolini early. She led 4-3. She was in control. She was competing at the level she needed to compete at. But then Paolini, the veteran, the player who's been here before, started to apply pressure back. And that's when it happened. Paolini had Iga serving at 4-3, and she had a chance. A real chance. 0-43 breakpoints match situation, not just a random breakpoint, these were crucial ones. If Paolini broke here, she'd lead 5-3 in the second set. She'd be one set away from winning and would be facing the real possibility of going down 2 sets to love. This was the moment. This was exactly what Federer had come to see, because now we weren't talking about beating a tired Swiatek in the third round. Now, we were talking about Eala under genuine pressure against someone with experience facing breakpoint in a pivotal situation with the entire match hanging on her ability to stay composed. And here's what Eala did. She saved the first breakpoint with a serve and volley. Won the point 0-30. Then she saved the second one. Won another point on her own racket. An aggressive shot when she could have played safe. 0-15. And then the third break point, she saved that one too. 3 break points saved. She was now at deuce. But Paolini didn't give up. She was a former world number 4. She fought. She got back to break point again. Eala saved it, then another, and another. She saved 5 break points. 5 in one service game against a veteran who knew exactly how to apply pressure. And after saving all 5 of those breakpoints, Eala didn't just hold, she won the game. She held it 5-3. Do you understand what just happened? This is the moment that separates players. This is the moment that determines careers. Under the most intense pressure imaginable, with the match in the balance, Eala didn't panic. She didn't make errors. She didn't tighten up. She played more aggressively. She hit winners. She served better on the important points. She stayed in control of her own nervous system. That's the exact sequence Federer was watching for. The second set went to Paolini. Eventually, Paolini's experience won out in the third. She was able to close it 6-4, 4-6, 6-3. Eala lost the match. The score went in Paolini's favor, but the match stats told a different story. 2 hours and 22 minutes. That's how long Eala made Paolini work. That's a grueling match. That's not someone getting steamrolled by experience. That's someone competing point by point, forcing every single advantage to be earned. Eala took the match the distance. She broke Paolini multiple times. She saved multiple break points. She never looked outmatched tactically. Here's what most 21-year-olds do when they face a former world number 4 in a Grand Slam 4th round. They get respect beaten. They play scared. They make errors because they're intimidated. The match looks like a mismatch. It looks like the veteran was just too much. That's not what this looked like. This looked like 2 really good players competing at a high level. Yes, Paolini's experience won out. Yes, Paolini made the key shots when they mattered most. But Eala proved something that goes way beyond the final score. She proved that she belonged there. And when Eala walked off that court, when she shook hands with Paolini, when she turned to leave center court for the last time in that match, something happened that most people completely missed. Something that told the real story about what had just transpired. The entire stadium stood. Not because she won, not because she played the greatest tennis ever, because she competed, because she fought, because she showed the kind of composure under pressure that makes people respect you regardless of the final score. Billie Jean King was on her feet and sitting right there in the royal box watching this 2-1-year-old walk off a Grand Slam court to a standing ovation after a loss was Roger Federer, and he was standing too. The match was over. Paolini had won 4-6, 6-4, 3-6. But as Eala turned to leave the court, something happened that told the real story. The entire center court stood, not because she won, because she competed. In tennis, there's a difference. When the crowd stands for you in defeat, it means you've crossed into something. You've entered a tear. You're no longer just a rising player. You're someone the tennis world respects, someone they believe in, someone they see a future in. And sitting in that ovation, watching this 2-1-year-old walk off center court to a roaring crowd after losing was Roger Federer. Now you understand why he came. This is what he saw in Eala. Not just the wins, not just the stats, the composure, the ability to face breakpoint and respond by playing better, not worse. The mental framework that separates players who have won great tournament from players who sustain excellence. The quality that Novak had in his early 20s, that Rafa had, that Serena had, the thing that only appears in players built for greatness. Federer came to Wimbledon to watch a match. But what he actually witnessed was a player revealing her true level, not the results. The character underneath. The part of her that doesn't quit when she's down 0-40. The part that stays aggressive when exhaustion is pulling her down. The part that comes back after 84 minutes of tennis and dominates the next set. That's what validated everything. Here's what people got wrong about that loss to Paolini. They saw the final score and thought it was a step back. But the loss proved something that the win against only suggested. It proved that Iga's composure is real. That it's not a one-time thing, that it's built into her, that when you put pressure on her, she doesn't break. She responds. That's the difference between a breakthrough and a launching pad. So, now we have to talk about what comes next. Because Eala didn't just reach a new ranking of world number 28. She reached something bigger. She reached a level of validation from the tennis world that most players spend entire careers chasing. She has Federer's attention. She has the respect of her peers. She has the crowds behind her. The question now isn't whether Eala can beat top players. She's proven that multiple times. The question is whether she can build on it, whether she can sustain this level, whether she can turn this Wimbledon moment into a top 10 career, or whether it was a peak, a beautiful moment that feels special in the moment but doesn't lead anywhere. That answer comes in the next 12 months. And here's the thing. If you want to follow what happens next with Eala, if you want to see whether she can turn this validation into sustained dominance, if you want to understand how this generation is reshaping women's tennis, you're going to want to stay close because the next chapter of her story is about to get even more interesting. The standing ovation on center court wasn't the end of Eala's story. It was a beginning. And if you want to see what that beginning leads to, subscribe because in the next video, we're going to explore something that even Federer might not have seen.